We're going to look at the analog synthesizer. So first taking a look at the different controls on the synthesizer, and then using our knowledge of these controls to build up a wobble bass, the kind of thing you'd hear in dubstep. So the first thing to point out is that always in the center is the display, and depending on what section of the shell you've selected, so there's the oscillator section, the filter, amp section, the LFO section, and the global section, different things will come up in the display. So the first section is the oscillator section, oscillator 1. The oscillator is the sound generator. It's what generates the initial sound wave. And those sound waves can come in a couple of different shapes. So the first is a sine wave. It's quite a soft sound. We have a sawtooth wave. It's a little bit raspier. Then there's a square wave. Now it's similar to the sawtooth wave at the moment. This is because it's not actually quite square yet. It's more of a rectangle. So it's got narrow sort of ridges like this. And we can widen up what's called the pulse width so that it will describe a perfect square instead. To do that, change the width of the pulse here, down the pulse width section in the display. So go up to 100%. You get that kind of Mario sounding 8-bit sort of sound. Okay, the final waveform you can have in analog is noise, which is the same no matter what key you hit. Okay, we're gonna we'll go for a square wave right now. That's what we're gonna build our dubstep wobble bass out of. So also in the oscillator control panel, you have your tuning controls, which can be you can change the octave depending on what kind of instrument it's gonna be. So we'll go for -1. This is gonna be a bass instrument. You can also change the tuning by semitones and by increments. Okay, so detuning. Okay, but at the moment we'll leave those two just at 0, and this one will be a -1. The next thing we want to look at is the filter. So the first filter. We've looked at different types of filters before, high cut, low cut, all that sort of stuff. Now, remember we were talking about how a high cut filter can also be called a low pass filter, and that's what LP stands for here. So you've got two types of low pass filter: band pass filter, notch filter, high pass filter, and formant filter. But we'll be talking more about different types of filters later on this week. The control we want to look at is the cutoff frequency here. So since it's a low pass filter, it's going to be cutting the highs above whatever point you set here. So as you bring this down, you'll start to hear the high content get knocked out. Okay, resulting in a kind of muffled sound. So for now, we'll leave this one around about 2K, somewhere in the 2K region. Now, resonance creates a resonant peak at the cutoff frequency. So you'll hear it sing a little bit. So we'll set that around 30 to 40% should do the trick. Okay, the next part of the shell that we want to look at is the amp 1. So this is the first amplifier control. Now this comes back to what we were talking about with the ADSR curve. So this part of the display shows the volume envelope. We can see it's got very fast attack, then quite quick release, zero sustain, very fast attack, quite quick decay, no sustain, and no release because there's no sustain. So we'll change this, we'll bring up the sustain so that you can have a longer note, and the release can be quite short. Right, you can also change panning here and the level of that oscillator. Now, we want to look at the LFO panel. The LFO stands for low frequency oscillator, and you can use this to modulate or control other elements of the synthesizer automatically. So what we're going to do is have the LFO open and close the cutoff frequency, effectively giving you this effect. So I'm doing that with the mouse right now, but we're going to have the LFO do it automatically. To link the LFO to the cutoff frequency, make sure the filter 1 tab is selected. Then under the frequency modulation section, turn up LFO 1 all the way to 4. Okay, now when you play, you should be hearing this wow, wow, wow sort of sound. And you can adjust the rate, the speed of that, either in hertz or tempo synced, so sync to the tempo of the track. Okay, so that's up to you how fast you want it to go. So we have the basic dubstep sound now. But we want to make it a bit dirtier. So what I'm going to do is add another octave beneath the original one. So to do that, click on the oscillator 1 tab. In the bottom right hand corner, you've got a sub or sync voice that can be stacked on top of the original one. So we're going to use a sub, as in 1 octave below the original tone. So take up the level to 100%. So you'll hear a bit of a thicker sort of sound. That's great so far. Now we'll add in yet another voice which will mirror what's going on, but an octave above this time. So turning on unison adds another set of stacked voices. And the detune control controls how far away that's tuned from the original voice. So okay, so it's starting to sound pretty filthy now. The last thing I want to do is turn on glide. So this is also in the global channel over here. So gliding will give me a sort of pitch bend effect when I change between notes. But for it to work, I have to be using a monophonic synthesizer. Okay, so monophonic means that there's only one voice. So when you press a second key, it'll cancel the first one and play the note on the second key. At the moment, it's set up to have 8 voices, as in I can play 8 keys simultaneously. And if I play a 9th key, the first key I press will be cancelled out. But I want just mono, as in 1 key. So as soon as I press a second key, the first one will be knocked out. Okay, so the glide time then determines how long it's going to take to glide up to notes like that. Okay, so from then it's just a matter of fine-tuning the cutoff frequency and resonance amount to get it just to sound like you like.